I just beat tier 19 as a rogue with 1 second left. As you can see, there are 4 other rogue players who have beaten tier 19, but all of their glyphs are 50 plus, so they're kind of in a separate category. All right, here is the full run that I just did. At the start here, I do swamp to snapshot that elements, so I get 60% poison damage every occasional 7 seconds or so. And because I see that there are spiders and skeletons, I pop my elixir and incense to get that armor cap reached and all sorts of goodies. So that's basically how you gotta do it. You gotta fish as a rogue especially for the best monster types in order to consistently be able to push the higher tiers. And then I'm playing penetrating shot. As you can tell, this build has kind of evolved. All rogues kind of started off being slightly separate from each other, but we've all kind of culminated in this one spot where we're using, like, a lot of the Eastern servers, like the Japanese and Chinese rogue players have popped in some good ideas in terms of using the basic skill to proc the close quarters combat instead of relying on dash or shadow step. And yeah, there's, you know, then you can put smoke grenade or caltrops on your, or both on your bar to get even more damage in your build. And that's what's needed. In this particular, like the monster types that we're fighting, they're not dangerous at all. I mean, you can definitely die to an unfortunate, you know, ballista crossbow across the map at the same time as another elite's affix is happening. But in general, it's very safe. So we're going not full glass cannon, but we're definitely maximizing our damage with this build. And then it's just a matter of playing well, right? We gotta collect as many monsters as we can, and we're pulling them together with our death trap occasionally when the monsters are not unstoppable. And then we try to just create big pulls where our penetrating shot benefits, like the more monster you hit, the more damage you deal. And obviously the benefits from the more enemies you can hit or monsters you can hit with one spell, you save a lot of time because you don't need to kill them individually. Here we pick up probably one of the better shrines for the rogue is the this immunity shrine, where we just don't take damage for like 20 seconds, so we can play a little bit more greedy and try to get more damage in. Obviously blast wave is probably still the best one, but it feels good to pick up one of these protector shrines. And I beat tier 18 earlier today, right before this, like an hour probably before this, and it's been fun, honestly, the AOZ, but the one thing that is not fun is fishing for these dungeons, right? Fishing for these monster types. It does make it a bit of just a boring grind, but it feels, the feeling once you beat it is great. It's just like you don't get to try that often, and the dopamine is, you know, far and wide between each time you get to feel good. You have to suffer in between the satisfaction of beating it. So here I pull 3, but I'm not really satisfied with just pulling 3, and I try to move forward to find more elites, and luckily enough this time there's another pack, so I try to put these 3 together with the next 3. So we got 6 elites at the same time, or sometimes 7 or 8. So that obviously helps us out a lot. And this build, obviously most people's builds are different because they have different items and different paragons, and you try to theory craft how to make your specific build the best. And I'm running both an incense and an elixir to make sure that I hit the armor cap of 13,500. And most people have disobedience, I don't. I'm relying on perfect roll of armor in my chest and a perfect roll in my amulet, combined with the incense elixir and a little bit from my paragon, and we barely hit it. And thanks to that playstyle, I'm able to only use one defensive aspect. So I'm using the trick shot, the penetrating shot aspect in my amulet, providing even more AoE damage and another slot on my rings to use the elements that you see spinning around me, the one that we snapshotted earlier. And we're using the Fists of Fate gloves, for example, and we can, thanks to us being able to remove the disobedience, we can run, you know, one more offensive item, which is why we can speed through tier 19 like this. Although we're not doing that great on time, but thanks to the monster type, it's going pretty well. And I'm just getting back-to-back shrines here, even though they're not the most impactful. It is nice to be able to reset your cooldown on Death Trap, get a good pull. And here you can see the lag. Lag management. I didn't play that much Diablo 3, but apparently it's been a thing for a long time. Heard Woody Joe talk about that in his latest video. And I've learned a lot from him in terms of managing the lag with this build. You gotta kill off some of the smaller mobs before you use Death Trap, or ideally, because otherwise you can definitely die or just be out of control in terms of what's happening. So here, there's not that many monsters. You can use a Death Trap. There's not that much lag. I can kind of tell what's going on. Just losing a couple frames here and there. That's okay. But sometimes you can get a 10-second, just the game is just soft locked and you have no idea what's going on. That's not ideal. So you want to avoid that. And other than that, there's not too many crazy things about my build in particular. Obviously, there's two phases to the AOZ. There's getting through the dungeon, and then there's the Bloodseekers. So there's a few things to cover in terms of the Bloodseekers, of what I do and how I try to approach that fight. Here we get, it always seems to happen, you get an insane pull of elites when you don't really need it, because we're almost at the spawn of the Bloodseekers right here. And basically, for the Bloodseekers, we are going to be swapping from Penetrating Shot to Rapid Fire, and we're changing quite a bit of skills to be able to make that happen. So I'm putting Concealment on. Basically, that de-aggroes the monster, like the Bloodseekers aren't even chasing us at this point. So we're putting on Crit Poison, and we're putting on Lucky Hit to proc Burst and Venoms more, and removing Penetrating Shot altogether, and we're putting Concealment on our bar, swapping two items. The Amulet had the Trick Shot aspect, as I mentioned. Now we have Rapid, so even more basic attack speed with a boost to our Weapon Mastery. So basically just more damage, and replacing that one that we didn't need. So we're using Concealment to pull one at a time, and then we just try to burst them down as fast as we can with our Rapid Fire poison damage. And we're using, obviously, the Evade Metamorphosis through to get the Vulnerable going, and we're using both Smoke Grenade and the Caltrops to maintain the highest DPS we possibly can. And the gloves that I swapped to, they're Inner Calm gloves, so I get 30% damage if I can stand still. I'm not always standing still here, but that's okay. I kind of just hoped that I would survive the fire explosion there, which I did thanks to the Dark Shroud Shadows we got going on. And the Bloodseekers here, I'm very lucky. There's basically no Sorcerer so far and no Teleporter, so they can't really do much in terms of move. As long as they can't move away, that's the ideal for us, because if they just stand still, our DPS goes up by a lot, because then we can stand still too and just sit in our Bursting Venomous puddle, enjoy the Inner Calm bonus, and be happy. So we only have 1.5 minutes left, a little bit less than that, and getting a little bit worried, but we gotta stay focused. You can't really do much about it, just gotta see if your DPS is enough. And this Necromancer, or I think he's a Necro, didn't really do much to us, so that really helped us kill him really fast. So here, though, we do have, by the looks of it, a little Sorceress, and with 1 minute left, it seems like on the clock it should be enough, but Sorceresses tend to take longer, depending on what's going on, but we're kind of lucky with the affixes, you know, we don't have anything that terrifying. But yeah, it felt good to get this far so quickly, because yeah, just an hour earlier I beat tier 18 and now I'm on tier 19, so it felt really good. And like a week ago, I kind of stopped playing the AOZ. For the first few days I blasted, tried to push, but then I got frustrated with just like the fishing and it was kind of boring. But they came back to it. felt the urge to see how far can I actually push this. Because I didn't really fish the first couple days, but if you just get this monster type, it's actually not that hard to beat tier 19. I'd say tier 20 is probably way harder and you needed the glyph to be level 50. But yeah, with 1 second left, we managed to do it with a level 21 glyph. I'm not going to level it to 50. I'm going to stop here. I'm officially done. We're using Blade Shift to get movement speed, to get increased attack speed with Ravenous, but also to activate close quarters combat, which is down here. Obviously essential. Rapid Fire is what we use on the bosses, so we swap the 7 points of these two, Pen Shot and Rapid Fire, between each other. And I don't go for the slow at all because most things are frozen or not even damaging us, and I'm dazing them anyway with my grenade. So I'm going for the crit chance instead on my Pen Shot because that's how we get Dark Shroud Shadows. And I've got 2 points in Siphoning Strikes just because at the Bloodseekers we're critting like 10 arrows with the rapid fire glitch with Thibault's Will, and so we get a lot of heal and sustain against a lot of the dot damage like poison and cold. We've got Caltrops for the chill effect, but also adds even more damage. As I mentioned, we got Dark Shroud for the movement speed and damage reduction. We're using Smoke Grenade for this 20% increased damage. You're noticing a theme, it's just as much damage as possible. And here we're using the lucky hit version of Poison Imbue during the Pen Shot part, the initial part of the dungeon, and then for the bosses we swap over to crit because rapid fire crits a lot. And we got 6 points in Frigid Finesse thanks to our amulet. And finally down here I swap over some more lucky hit chance to proc Bursting Venoms during the Bloodseekers. Otherwise, I'm using the Death Trap during the run itself. And in the Paragon, I'm actually putting the Tears of Blood in the starter board because it's the most efficient place for it when it's not level 50. And moving into the cheap shot board, most people utilize the slow damage reduction and put their Tears of Blood here, which is the best place for it when it's level 50. But I use efficacy just to boost the damage to crowd control. And as you can see, we're missing out on 22.5% CC damage here, just to get some little bit more life nodes and stuff like that. Moving into the third board, Cunning Stratagem, we just got a versatility here to pick up some more armor and boost our Poison Imbue damage. Fourth board is Exploit Weakness with the Control Glyph. And my boots here have 4 resistances, and the 5th resistance comes from these nodes here, the cold resistance nodes and some life, which we're utilizing to move into this board here with Bane, just a Tricks of the Trade for some extra armor. And finally, we're using Tracker to extend our poison damage timer. I'm not sure if it's glitched or not. Everyone's using it and it feels like it's doing a lot of damage. And of course the Eldritch Bounty node there as well. So a purely offensive Paragon board. Of course the combo points and the specifics of our gear. I've gone with a bow instead of a crossbow for 2 reasons. A, it shoots faster, and with a crossbow we are unable to take advantage of the Weapon Mastery passive because it increases crit strike damage, but you can't crit with poison. So this is a useless skill if you're using a crossbow. But with bow, it increases our damage against vulnerable enemies. So that's just a 12% increased multiplicative damage. And for the Bloodseeker fight, I actually swapped to this amulet here that gives +3 to weapon mastery. So we're getting even more value from using the bow. Probably the most important item is Doombringer to stay alive. Not to mention Condemnation and Thibault's Will. Just the bug, of course, is essential. We're running Fists of Fate. You can kind of one-shot elites at these high tiers too. Here we got the Umbrus on our chest. Of course, Shaco. And our rings, here we're taking advantage of the snapshotting bug. We're putting elements on here for 30%, but it's actually 60% thanks to this random 2-hander that we put on at the beginning of the dungeon. Bursting Venoms, of course, and on our amulet, we have the Penetrating Shot aspect. And as you can see, we have 71% of all resistances thanks to this incense. And for the Bloodseekers, I do swap 2 items, the amulet here for some more damage, and then these gloves for Inner Calm, adding more damage, but I'm not really sure it's that needed. I think it's pretty equal damage to just using the Fist of Fate that's already on there. My intention was to roll Lucky Hit on these to get even more chance of proccing the Bursting Venoms, but I'm completely out of Veiled Crystal, so I couldn't get there. For the Vampiric powers, I'm using Metamorphosis to sustain that Unstoppable at all times, but also being able to take advantage of the Flowing Veins one, and this is also how we make everything vulnerable. So these 3 are essential together. Ravenous, of course, for the attack speed, and then Undying to sustain, because we're playing mainly against spiders. There's a lot of dots going on. So without this, we would not be able to survive. That is all I'm going to be doing in Season 2 of Diablo 4. But good luck to all the rogues out there who are pushing their Tears of Blood glyph to 50. Of course, by doing this, you can push way further as well. If you have any questions about the build or the gameplay, leave a comment below.